Welcome to another day in the Matrix. This is Red Pill Podcast 150. Hope you're all doing amazing. And this will be the Chinese New Year special since yesterday was the Lunar New Year. And if you are new to the Wolfpack and you haven't watched my Year of the Dragon Decoded, definitely check that out. It's packed with numbers and symbolism and everything you need to know for the rest of this year. And before we get started, make sure to get relaxed, comfortable, grab yourself a cup of coffee or tea if it's the morning time, or a glass of wine or beer or any beverage of your choice if it is the nighttime. Again, this is the Red Pill Podcast, and I am so grateful to be here with you all. It's been a wild week in the Matrix, and this weekend really does feel like a lot of pent-up energy is about to be released. So we will talk about that in today's podcast for sure. And welcome to the Year of the Dragon, everyone. So before we get started, if you are new here and you haven't gotten access to our Discord server, just go ahead and send me a direct message on Patreon with your Discord username, and I will reply back to you on a Patreon message with your Discord user invite. And the voting system on the altcoins, we did awesome this week. We have a lot of alts to cover. I think I picked out 5. On top of going over total market cap as well as total 2, I'll touch base on the Bitcoin CME chart as well as Ethereum and XRP, of course. And then we'll be getting into Oasis Network, Holo, Monero, Tezos, and Bitcoin Cash. So jam-packed episode today, guys. I'm really excited to get into this. Without any further ado, just a quick update. Some of you might be aware that my new full-length course, the Decoding Mastermind, is available now on pre-sale, which ends tomorrow. So for the next 24 hours, you can take advantage of this exclusive pre-sale discount to get the lowest price available before the course is released to the public tomorrow afternoon. And you'll be able to find the link to the course and the promo code in the description of this video and in the pinned comment below. And since all of my courses are a one-time payment for lifetime access, you'd be getting in at the lowest price, and there will be more course lessons added over time, making this packed with value for this pre-sale price. And whenever new lessons are added to the course, there won't be any further action needed by you. Any new content will be added automatically to make this as user-friendly as possible. And I've already received amazing feedback from those that have joined during this pre-sale launch, and it really means the world to me to have your continued support. This project has been in the works for over a year now, and I poured my heart and soul into this one. I know it will be one of the most unique course experiences you've ever had. Just the visuals alone in this course make it next level, and I designed it similar to my expansion mastermind, so it'll feel like there will be this element of me coaching you through the process of learning how to decode and become a decoder. I feel that that is an important part of the course experience to make it more interactive in that way. So this promo code below will be active throughout today and tomorrow for those that have invested in themselves by investing in my art and being one of the early supporters of this project. I appreciate your support. I'm so grateful to be a part of your journey. It really means the world to me. You'll also see the link to this course and the pre-sale details in this Patreon post as well. And you could go overhead to this link, click it, read the About section, and then check out some of the course lessons that are included in here. And as I said, there will be more added to this over time. We're just getting started, but what's available here in the early access and at the beginning is going to be some mind-blowing gnosis for you guys to build one of the most solid foundations as a decoder. So let's get into today's Red Pill. We're all well aware that today is the annual prana harvesting ritual of the Super Baal in the same weekend as Chinese New Year, the Year of the Dragon. Big energy going on in the world stage right now as all the attention gets sucked towards this event like a vacuum. So it's the same thing going on with crypto, with an incredibly bullish week for Bitcoin as it's recovered and approached the 49K territory several times over this weekend, and I found an absolutely mind-blowing code that I wanted to share with you all, and it's right here. If you take from March 11th, 2020, the day that C-19 was declared a pandemic by the WHO, and connect it to today, Super Bowl Sunday, February 11, 2024. Now, this might seem insignificant, but it is 1,433 days apart. And you're going to see why this is very powerful. Because 1,433 is the 227th prime. And guess what the number 227 is? Well, it's the 49th prime number. And here we are today. The 49ers are playing in this Super Bowl. And so far, as I record this video, it seems Bitcoin really wants to get back and retest 49K like it did this last month, about a month ago from today actually, when the ETFs launched before it had a 20% correction. So some of you might have watched the last video that I put out covering this synchronicity between a 49K Bitcoin and the 49ers playing in this Super Bowl, leading into Satoshi Nakamoto's 49th birthday, right before the solar eclipse that follows with the 4/9 date, April 9th, 4/9, in the Gregorian system. Plenty of 49s, and this one that I just showed you right here is mind-blowing. Because what happened in 2020? Well, we had this event shutting down the whole world stage, and who was playing in the Super Bowl back then? The same two teams, the Chiefs and the 49ers. And here we have this connection between March 11, 2020 to February 11 today, almost 4 years later, and 1,433 days. 1433 is the 227th prime number. 227 is your 49th prime number. All of these 49s. And in the last red pill, I decoded the upcoming date of February 13th. So please make sure to watch that red pill if you haven't. It was a red pill 149, coincidentally. But essentially, it's this whole upcoming week, because it's the 7th week of the year. Let me quickly show you this. And this number 7 is very powerful. Obviously, now it's become revealed to me what's going on here because of this number 49 as our theme. 49 is 7 squared, 7 sevens. This number 7 is crucial. So, okay. One thing to mention, because I keep getting asked this, is about a comprehensive Super Bowl decode. So it's been almost 2 weeks, and I've said this already, that I am unable to have a full Super Bowl decode. I made that Year of the Dragon decoded ahead of time on purpose so that you can utilize all that data as sports decoders. I decided that it's best for me to stick to my priorities this year, and I wanted to get this decoding course out. So my plate's already full, working 10 to 12-hour days most days. No days off at all. So yeah, just getting that out there at the start of this. There is no me picking a prediction or a winner this year. It's not as important to me as what's going on. And I think we're going to piece together more of this, but everything that was shared in that Year of the Dragon decoded could have been utilized for this upcoming Super Bowl decode for any sports decoders. We're very straight on that, and just wanted to say that again now because I know I'm bringing up some of the themes of this Super Bowl, and it's not to be a full comprehensive sports decode. It's more just combining all of the things that are going on right now in the world stage and decoding it holistically. That's what matters more anyways. So getting back to this, we uncovered this number 49 esoterically by connecting today to the C19 date. And you can see we were talking about this earlier with this 1433. Well, remember what I mentioned in that Year of the Dragon decoded to watch out for March 10th of this year. That was the day that was tied to the .com bubble back in 2020. Let me just quickly, 2000, excuse me. So moving into March 10th of this year, we're going to be at the 24th anniversary of this upcoming March 10th date, which would be effectively the day before the C19 date. So powerful stuff that we're going to have the 24-year anniversary because of this number 24 that's tied into this year. We're in the Gregorian year of 24 and the Hebrew year that adds up to 24. It's the Hebrew year 5784. And this is important since this year, March 10th, lands on a new moon. And we see how new moons have been lately. I mean, look at today. Just like I teach, to consider a 5-day window around the moon cycle, either to be bullish or bearish energy. Well, the 5 days around a new moon is typically bullish energy. And Bitcoin has been just going up in a straight line for the past 5 days. And the March new moon, of course, is right before we go into eclipse season. And that's big. So this is a very important thing to note for this year, and it was something that I mentioned in the Year of the Dragon Decoded, to keep in mind the dates of March 10th through March 15th. March 15th being the Ides of March, and that being around the time where the sun moves into Pisces in sidereal, actually analyzing the sky. All right. So one other thing to mention about this upcoming week is the date of February 14th. Remember, we started decoding this a little bit in the last Red Pill podcast, but let me get over to this date of 2024. All right. Now, I want to connect this date to the date of Bitcoin's current all-time high, which was on November 10th of 2021. And why this is important is it is 827 days apart. This number 827 is the 144th prime number, the 144. And mathematically, this 144 is powerful because it's not only 12 squared, but it's 12th Fibonacci number. So it's 12 12s, but it's also the 12th number in the Fibonacci sequence. That's very important to keep in mind. This number 12 is found throughout the Bible and many other religious texts. We see it quite often with the 12 disciples. We're aware of the 12 months, the 12 months, and so on. There's so many of these, 12 zodiac signs, etc. But getting back on track, this 144 is big, and I find that to be fascinating, this connection between Bitcoin and this upcoming week with the all-time high date to where we're at now. And the market has been the most bullish it's been pretty much for going on 2 years now. I mean, pretty much going on 3. This is effectively the most bullish Bitcoin has been. So I took the most bullish date, which would be the all-time high, and I connected it to this upcoming Valentine's Day. And this would be this 827 or the 144th prime number. Something that's just adding in more emphasis to the original date that I decoded last week of February 13th. And one thing to mention, whenever you're hearing me speak about dates that are close to each other day by day, everything works in threes. So if we had the date in the middle of the 13th, we would want to consider the energy the day before, or effectively when it would be the 13th in Australia, for instance, and then the day after. So we'd use the middle date and then the day before and after, and that's your trinity. And that's how you always look at the way things are going. And this is showing itself in the markets as well. Like we had back with the C19 crash, the day before we were just starting to become like losing stability. Then the day of the big crash that came in, well, that wasn't the bottom. It was the following day that we really sunk into our lowest prices across the board, and then we got bought up after that. So it's the day before the crash, the day after, the day of the crash, and the day after. It was that window. And it could be used the same way in any other application. I think that'll be helpful for all decoders out there to consider that. All right. So we talked about this 144, big connection with this 827 being the 144th prime number. One other thing to mention about the 144, since we're on the topic, is it fits into this 369 code because 1 plus 4 plus 4 equals 9, and February 14th is the 45th day of the year. 4 plus 5 equals 9, and the day that C19 started, March 11th, 2020, was a 9-date numerology. So I find that to be very interesting as well. This is the number of spatial infinity, or the completion of abundance. And speaking of the number 9, the date of the solar eclipse that we have coming up on April 8th, let me just show you that really quickly, 2024, is at the 99th day of the year. So we have that 9 code again. And this is just days after Satoshi Nakamoto's 49th birthday and leading into the Bitcoin halving, which we will talk about today, by the way. It's been a while since I've talked about the halving, and I wanted to take some time in today's podcast, give you even more value out of the red pill, and talk about the halving specifically and do a little decode on that. So you can look forward to that in a couple moments. But this number 49 that we're talking about, it's big. It seems to be in the script this year with today's Super Bowl, which is probably going to be starting as I am releasing today's podcast. So for crypto, this makes this next couple weeks significant because we have some code with the number 49 in it, and I want to show you that right now. We have February 16th tied to, one moment, all right. So we have this upcoming February 16th, which is going to be effectively this next Friday. It's 49 days before Satoshi's 49th birthday. Keep that in mind, 49s. And this is going to be important stuff for crypto, obviously. I also believe this is around the next quarter moon. Let me double check. Oh, it's the day of. Beautiful. And we've been using the quarter moons as like pivot points. All right. So we have this whole upcoming week packed with 49. Starting with this, we have February 16th is 49 days before Satoshi's 49th birthday. And then we also have the following date. If you wanted to include the end date, you'd have this February 17th to Satoshi's birthday, 49. And then naturally the following day is the 49th day of this year. And like I told you guys, everything goes in threes. So you have this 16th connected to Satoshi's birthday, 49 days. The following day, if you wanted to include the end date, 49 days. And then the following day, 49th day of the year. All 49s connected to Satoshi's 49th birthday. So if we wanted to go a couple steps further into this, we also have February 19th connected to the upcoming solar eclipse by 49 days, right after the 49th day of the year, which then leads into the 4-9 date. Big, okay? It's like the whole February month was packed full of this code, and here we are with the 49ers playing in this Super Bowl in February. It's crazy how scripted this all is. So now I'm seeing it very clearly, these 49s, and the fact that Satoshi is coded into all of this proves that this is just a mythological character. This has nothing to do with a real person. This is an algorithm, if you will. It's a mythological algorithm, which makes it even more fascinating for decoders. So we have this 19th, same effect you would have with the 20th being 49 days before the 4-9 date. And you could kind of see where this is going. And one thing to mention about the follow-up on this is if you wanted to include the end date, you have the 21st, and this 52nd day of the year could be something because we have cryptocurrency gives you 52 in Gematria. And this date of February 21st is connected to Satoshi's birthday by 44 days. And this 44 we already decoded. It's 4 4s, but also 2 4s. So it becomes 24 esoterically. And that's just a couple of days before this month's full moon on February 24th. So the full moon in the year of the dragon, the start, has that 24 code in it in the 24 year. Amazing. even when we're synchronizing Gregorian system with everything else. That's what's making this more powerful. See, I would never rely solely on the Gregorian calendar. I'm adding in all these other layers, even with what we're talking about with sidereal, or when we're decoding the number of the month, the true number, right? We've talked about this a lot with like the month of October. It would make no sense for that to be the 10th month in the system if oct prefix means 8, like an octagon has 8 sides. So when we combine all of these systems together and we start having confluence, that's when it actually is a decode, and that's when it's going to add up to something. So this effect of the full moon is during the 8th week of this year. And remember from my Year of the Dragon Decoded, that number 8, is the symbolism for this year. So let's shift things a little bit. And lately I've been getting a lot of requests to talk about the Bitcoin halving and my thoughts on the Bitcoin halving. And I think it's important we talk about this upcoming Bitcoin halving since it's in the key month of April, which has always been significant during the Year of the Dragon. And I shared this information with you guys a while back when we were doing the S&P analysis going back over 100 years. And when we did that analysis, we saw that the stock market tends to top out in late March or by April. Then it has a correction, chills out all the way until around August, September. And that seemed to align perfectly with what we've seen in the past with Bitcoin regarding the halving, and also what we've seen happen with Bitcoin just in general during the months of May, June, and July. Okay, so that aligns very nicely. And we also have the data for an election year. Our data for the election year shows that during these presidential election years, April, May are pretty much down. And then we have June kind of flat, but we get a buyback in July and August that's extreme. All right. And this is that emphasis on August that I've been putting not only on Bitcoin, but also the stock market in general. And we've seen right now, we're in this month of February, and we're a really bullish stock market right now, all-time highs. I've been seeing incredible plays in the stock market, although it's getting overheated, but that's how the Year of the Dragon kicks off. It's just overly bullish. And I understand what's going on with Fed policy right now and all this other exoteric jargon that we could discuss, but you guys learn enough of that from other channels and people who put their energy into that. I'm here for the esoteric. I'm here to see what's really going on. So let's get back to this concept of the April Bitcoin halving and the fact that it's in that key month. It's also in the month of Satoshi's birthday. Oh man, the other big thing that we've been talking about is the grand trial between Ripple and the SEC in late April, right around the time frame of the halving. So that grand trial is on April 23rd, and we have this Bitcoin halving effectively predicted to be around April 18th. So let's just call it between April 16th and April 22nd or so. That's kind of the range. And it doesn't matter what date it happens, because you're going to see right here that what's most important is the days before and this effect that it has, like a ripple effect. I talked about this in my last video too. We have when the water drops in the center, that would be the date. You want to think about how the ripple effect goes outwardly. So if it was 3 months out, that means it's also going to affect 3 months forward. And I'm going to prove that to you right now. So let's get over to the first halving, shall we? Wow, we have so much to talk about today. Are you excited? I'm excited. Are you excited? I'm excited. All right. For real though, let's get into it. Let's go to the daily. So right now we're going to be paying attention just to the Bitcoin halvings. And look at this. We have a Bitcoin halving in the Year of the Dragon in 2012. Okay, it was in November though. We know that ours is upcoming in April. So we have the Bitcoin halving right around a solar eclipse. That's very important to note because the space in between our halving and our solar eclipse this year is pretty damn similar, guys. Look, 15 days apart. So if I was to go to this chart here and look at the space between our eclipse, and our halving prediction date as late as like the 22nd or 23rd, it's the same. And it's in the same Chinese year. Can't make this shit up. So that's one thing to note. That's kind of cool, right? That we have the data. Bitcoin is at least old enough that we could use that piece of data. On most altcoins, we can't do this, obviously, because most altcoins can't go back this far, you know? They're not as OG. But, all right, let's get this train back on the rails. We have this, although I know you guys like humor, and it's important on these long forms to loosen up a bit and have fun, especially for those of you out there that made wine or beer your beverage of choice. So we have the Bitcoin halving date coming in November, and I want to point out the kind of ripple effect concept that I was talking about before, where we have looking at about 33 days before was our lows in a pretty sideways market. If we went 89 days or just 3 months before, that was really around, the first initial test to the downside. And then right like a month before the halving, we had another flush out. Nothing too extreme though, but let's look at the moon phases. And we see how it was on the full moon before the halving. We had our low. Something to keep in mind, because the full moon that's before our halving is a lunar eclipse, which makes this a lunar eclipse. Keep note of this. That would be March 24th, 25th. Wow, the timing of all of this is insane. Halving on a full moon. You have the full moon on April 23rd. That's the day of the Ripple SEC grand trial. That might also be within a stone skip away from the Bitcoin halving. So I think this year of the dragon of 2012 is pretty cool, man. And let's keep in mind where we're at today. If we were to consider that we're about 68 days out or so. Look at that. Right around that new moon, high, within the highs of, wow, dude, you can't make this up. This is rad. Really cool. I love seeing stuff like this because it shows you that it doesn't matter if Bitcoin had a lower market cap. It doesn't matter if Bitcoin was the only coin trading at that. It doesn't matter. It's just cyclical. It's cyclical. And you're going to see a couple of patterns here that we're going to identify. One of which is you see how in the halving time frame, we're trading between these two golden lines. That's the golden pocket of the cycle. So you had your prior all-time high. You have your cycle low. Gravitate into the golden pocket during the halving. But anyways, what we want to mention is just look at how after the halving, we have about 50 days or so of sideways. You see by day 49, we started to recover. But we were generally pretty sideways. And if you were to do 50 days earlier, you can see it's the same effect. All right. So that's really what I want to talk about right now and what I want you guys to keep in mind. Within 2 months of the ripple, with the central point being the halving, we're generally pretty low. Then when we start getting after that time frame, we start to go pretty nuts. So let's remind ourselves of that note that I just said before about how during the halving, we're in the golden pocket, the macro golden pocket. Well, here we are in the next cycle. We have the all-time high. We have the swing lows. And look at this. We move right into the halving in the golden pocket. Shocker. Now, it doesn't matter. All this stuff that Bitcoin was trading alone, that the market cap was different, or it's irrelevant. It is irrelevant. This whole market runs on an algorithm. It's proof. Okay, now let's use this number 50. We're 50 days before. You see, it's the lowest Bitcoin was trading before it rallied. And then what happened was we did get a correction after, about 24 days after. But if we look from the halving time frame and go sideways, it was about 50 days or so when we were trading into this low range. Right around the 50-day point, we pivoted and we went up. No different than the last cycle. Crazy. And this was during an election year, by the way. So also, obviously, Bitcoin seems to be synced with that, the election year concept. But needless to say, I just find that to be amazing. how we're right back into the same time frame, same sort of effect, and we have this 50-day energy going in both directions. And you're going to see how this starts to add up. And this was about 2 full moons before. Let me show you the moon cycle. Boom. On that 50 days back from the halving, it was a full moon. That was the last chance. We rose up pretty hard. And then unless you were getting in on this perfect day, you did not get in lower. But you did have a chance. And I've taught this as well. I've told everyone that like this, nobody needs to stress themselves out right now, because although Bitcoin's not the opportunity, what is? The altcoins. That's what most of you guys care about anyways. That's what I care about more anyways too. That's where the ROI is. The only reason I have a 50% Bitcoin position and a 10% gold position is because I'm looking at this long term, and I'm trying to stay in a more conservative place, because playing with a 90% altcoin portfolio is sketchy. You need to be really in and out with the whole thing. And then unless you live in a country with very limited tax liability, well then, yeah, you're giving all this money back to the IRS or whatever tax institution you have for capital gains. So I'd rather not get super fancy if I can play this out on long-term swings. But as a professional trader, I could totally see the reason why you would want to play this market, because there's so much volatility here. So again, it just depends on where you're at in your journey. But we cover Bitcoin sort of like the market compass. That's the main reason why we focus on this stuff. So if you're here and you don't own any Bitcoin, you're not really concerned with this, I'm trying to teach you right now that you might want to start caring about this, because it affects the altcoins that you're in. And the same thing sort of goes for the people that are, getting antsy about Bitcoin doing something and don't own any Bitcoin. There's so many people right now, and if you're one of these people, don't take this personally, but just, again, this is the Red Pill podcast. The Red Pill needs to be handed out, and I'm going to wrap up these words of wisdom very quickly. If you're somebody who's right now just glued to these charts, looking at Bitcoin almost hit 50K, and you don't own any Bitcoin, and also you're not really sure how to read the chart or invest or know any technical analysis, I'm letting you know right now that by staring at this number go up and down on the screen is what's preventing you from developing the skill called technical analysis. This is a big problem right now in the world of people that are just staring at numbers go up and down, and they're not really taking the time to invest in themselves by utilizing that time wisely to learn the skill. And what's funny is a lot of these people don't even own Bitcoin, and they're sitting here right now staring at this chart because it's exciting. And what do I teach? Wolves don't get distracted by what's exciting. You get into markets when they're boring. So with Bitcoin doing what it's doing, it's just out of opportunity territory. And if it's not an opportunity, then why sit and stare at it when you could be learning from it? Do what we're doing here and going back into past cycles and studying them, right? This is how you can develop the skills. So I hope this taps into you in a way that isn't triggering, but moreover, something that gives you utility. That's what I want these podcasts to be about. I want them to be something you could walk away with value. So getting back to this, we have this 2016 cycle. We see these 50 days before, and this 50-day after effect is pretty incredible. Right after this pivot point of the eclipse, we started to move up. And by the way, that was a great time to get in, because Bitcoin after this moment, after the second solar eclipse, it went up about 3,400%. Yeah. So pretty incredible. Let's get over to here. Those gains are long gone, though. We're never going to see Bitcoin do something like that again. So we have this 2020 halving in May right here. And let's look at what happened 50 days before that. Well, that was your C19 crash territory. But also look at 50 days after. Boring. Sideways. Nothing. And then we pivoted out, and then we went on a bull run. It's this number 50, which is making me think like, wow, this number 49 then. 49 is what's leading into 50. That's the sequence. And that's why the 49ers are playing in the Super Bowl this year. And that's why they were playing in the Super Bowl back here. It's the same. They were also playing in the Year of the Dragon, I believe, in like 88. I couldn't even imagine if we started going into the S&P and the Dow and started looking at that data. I mean, we know what happened almost every single year of the dragon. We topped out in March, April. But yeah, this effect. Oh yeah, the dot-com bubble was during the year of the dragon. I forgot about that. Oh man, yeah, this is wild. This is like, if you made it to this channel, consider yourself like how magical the stars aligned for you to be able to find this information right now at all time. Some people say they wish they found this community earlier. It's like, no, you were perfectly on time. This is like a miracle you even made it here in the sea of many other people out there that have no idea about these components of the market. You're really you're ahead of the rest. And I'm grateful to be a part of your journey. It really means the world to me. It's not even about the being right or wrong thing here. It's about being aware, knowing. It should make you comfortable to know in a world of people that are confused. That's the beauty of decoding. That's why this Decoding Mastermind course, I put so much emphasis on the introduction of it and the foundation of it. So that way you know what these numbers and symbols and ideas mean. When you go into astrology and you start learning about it, like, what does this Virgo symbol mean, right? Well, that's what that course teaches. All right, so I want to just finish up on this halving cycle that we had last time. We had 50 days of sideways before recovery into the continuation of the bull run. Also, look at the interaction with the golden pocket around the halving. Look, there's your golden pocket right there. We smacked into it just a couple days before the halving, like clockwork. So what does that tell you? In April, we should be around the same golden pocket territory that we have, and we're trading in it right now. So that's no need to even care about that really. But what we want to see is the 50 days before effect and how we were down. And that was the same thing with the last cycle and the cycle before that. It's getting in earlier is better than getting in later. But at least after the halving for 50 days, we're kind of boring. And boring is fun too. Boring is fun for altcoins. But you feel where I'm coming from. Let me wrap this up. Essentially, the 100 to 120 days around a halving are ideal for buying opportunities before the crypto bull run really gets wild. So we have the 50 days before or 50 days after, but the 50 days before seem to be a lower price and a better opportunity than getting in later. Oh, and another thing, and this is something we've been tracking too, how Bitcoin moves from the second to third solar eclipse closing higher. So if we're gonna get lower, well, that tells us that it's going to happen soon. It's going to have, well, I hate saying have to, that's unfair, but it's likely to come sooner than after the Bitcoin halving. We have a theme of us being down before a halving, 50 days before, and we also have a theme of closing each following solar eclipse higher in price. So we have two patterns that have been going on since the genesis of Bitcoin. There'd be no reason to go against this at this point. I know that a lot of people might have differing analysis, and that's fine, but I'm not going to bet against this type of stuff. Like, I see it for what it is. And by the way, I've already de-risked my Bitcoin position. I have a lot of Bitcoin still in my portfolio in regards to my overall holdings. I got rid of what was necessary for me to just implement it in building a more well-rounded portfolio around this halving time. It's all strategy. That's what I teach. I don't sell it all. I don't buy everything in one day. I dollar cost average methodically, strategically over time. The same thing with my selling. So when I do a de-risk that happens on a single day, it's because I really dialed in exactly to the number of what I needed to get rid of to then put that somewhere else where I feel like that money would serve me better. All right. So if I could roll over a 47K Bitcoin into something that has a potential of going up 1,000 to 2,000% in an altcoin, I don't give a fuck. I don't care if Bitcoin goes to 50,000 tomorrow. It's irrelevant because the gains that I'll make on the altcoin are so much more. I hope people realize that too. You know, what we're doing here is methodical. It's not just trying to be the right or wrong. It's about how to do what's best for you in your situation. But you got to have a plan. You have to have a trading plan. You have to have an exit strategy. This is what we're teaching here. And if you don't really know how to do these things, I have that Crypto Mastermind course, and you also have this community. Ask questions. We will be helpful. So we have this 100 to 120 day concept. Now let's see where we are today, because that's what you guys care about most. We have the halving somewhat around the 20th of April, whether it's the 18th or the 16th or the 22nd or 23rd. It doesn't really matter, and we're about 70 days out from that right now. And we've been bullish in some situations up to 60 days, and then we've had a little bit of a dip into being about 50 days before. So if I went 50 days before that, where that takes us is around the beginning of March. And if I was to take the date that I'm getting right here from this website of April 18th, and I was to measure 50 days out, that brings me to the last days of February, right there. Now, also, we've brought up that the lunar eclipse could be a consideration because of 1 or 2 iterations. And then over here, we have about 33 days before, putting us into right around when the sun moves into Pisces in sidereal. So that's fascinating. And then in the last cycle, we had this C19 crash effectively into mid-March, right after the March full moon. So let's get a little bit more dialed in, shall we? Let's see where we're at today. This calculator here, February 11th. We're going out to about the 18th. It seems reasonable. We're about 67 days till the halving. Now, if April 18th happens to be the same exact date, that gives us from around February 18th to 28th as the window of time to consider based on past iterations. So take a note of that. And what I mean is that would be the window of time to see Bitcoin at the lows before recovery. And remember, February 18th, let me bring that date up again. We talked about it earlier, is the 49th day of the year. And we have Satoshi's 49th birthday coming up. 49ers are in the Super Bowl. So this can't be overlooked, considering the data. But remember, another pattern we identified was tied into the full moon before the halving, the full moons that are before the halving. Well, this month's full moon is on the 24th, and that would be about 54 days out. It's kind of right there in our time frame. If we were to include the end date, that's 55 days. And, well, look at February 24th. It's the 55th day of the year. And this matters a lot because we keep bringing up Satoshi, and Satoshi Nakamoto and Gematria is 55 in multiple ciphers. Been talking about this for years now. So that's right there in that time frame we've been decoding. The fact that this full moon is 55 days apart from the halving, where Bitcoin's halving is, created by Satoshi, 55 in Gematria, and the 55th day of this year. That's powerful stuff. So can't be disregarded. And when we're talking about the full moon in March, that's another side note, and then we're going to move on from this because the C19 crash was 3 days after the full moon in March. So there was a March 9th full moon in 2020, 2 days after C19 was declared a pandemic. And 3 days after the market completely crashed, 4 days after, it started to bottom out. And the market bottomed within the 5-day window of the full moon, just like I teach. So the 5-day window around this month's full moon is February 19th through 29th, the leap year date. And keep in mind the significance of February 28th. Let me show you that really quickly. Because it's the 59th day of the year, and we're in the year of the dragon, and dragon equals 59 in Gematria. Essentially, this late February timeframe we've been talking about for months now even lines up with the halving data that I just presented today. Also, let's go back to the last year of the dragon in 2012. We talked about this for a couple minutes, and look at this. How this dip that we got at the start of the year of the dragon was February 16th. It was also in the month of February, and that was the lowest that we went for the whole year of the dragon. Again, you cannot make this up. So remember, we were talking a lot about this early January timeframe. Well, lately we've been doing really well into this February timeframe for Chinese New Year, but it seems to be the Chinese New Year time aligns with a time where the Bitcoin miners start doing what they do best, And this is just, I'm not going to call it manipulation, but this is just offloading, okay, of the miners. And of course, a majority of the mining is going on in China. At least that's the data that I last heard. And this is Chinese New Year. This isn't by design. Also, we just broke below 10,000 blocks today, pretty much as I was preparing today's video. And right around the time it transitioned from 10,000 to 9,999, we started to see a rejection in price. All right. And I guess as we speak, this Super Bowl is going on right now. So that's going to affect things as well. But let's get through this part. So we had last year of the dragon, correction into mid-February. That aligns with everything else we've been saying. And by the way, this wasn't just a little correction. This was a 40-something% correction. Look at that. It was about a 40% correction. I mean, if we were to have our 40% correction now, it would bring us down to the low 30K range. That'd be a gift. So the highest we went in 2012, speaking of February, the highest we went in 2020, was February 13th, and then a month later we crashed. So we'll see how this Super Bowl goes, since it's a rematch of this 2020 Super Bowl, the 49ers versus the Chiefs. It'll be very interesting if the Chiefs win again and this ends up being a repeat of the 2020 year with a Black Swan event in the month of March, leading into the Apex Predators' new year as the sun moves into Pisces and sidereal. And somebody shared this with me. Many supporters of mine shared this with me. I haven't taken the time to confirm this data. That's why I'm not putting a lot of emphasis on it. I believe some of it is accurate. I can't say all of it is accurate. I don't have the time to. There's too much going on here. But yep, we knew about the same matchup, and that's pretty interesting if all these other things are also in alignment. Because in March we had the Black Swan, and I don't think it's going to be C19, by the way. I don't believe that that's possible for us to go into another lockdown like that. But is there a possibility of a Black Swan in March? That could be something else. Absolutely, of course. And then we have that April 15th date that I keep telling everyone about. That's big too. So April 15th is my date. March 10th through March 13th or 15th is another time frame I have. So let me wrap that up and we'll get to the TA. We have March 10th through the 15th is my big date time frame to consider. Then we have April 14th and 15th. Big. Definitely ritual. Let's get over to total market cap. It's been a while since I've covered this. Bitcoin's chilling out a little bit now, ever since we broke through that 10,000th block. Also, I hope you're all doing amazing. This has been a really fun podcast so far. A lot of emphasis on February. I think we need to, just because of what's happening right now. And we're well prepared for the March and April ritual dates. I've been talking about those for a while. We're looking at total market cap, including Bitcoin. And I just wanted to point out this fib pull from the cycle high in January to this cycle low, December 2018. And during this phase right here, we got rejected right at the 618 fib. Let me zoom in. And we did close a single daily candle, above the 618. And then it was a downtrend. Well, here we haven't closed a single daily candle above the 618, but we are kissing it. All right. We still haven't made technically a new high yet. We've made a new daily close high, but not a new high so far. I just wanted to point that out. I mean, I'm not here to say that I deny that we can just go to heaven right now, but it'd be very weird. Considering the timing and the spacing of all of this, it seems that we still have to get through the Bitcoin halving, and then we got to get through a couple of months of sideways, build some market structure before we can just keep going up forever. And even here on this rally, when we go from the cycle lows up to this first rejection at the 382 fib, this lasted about 140 days, and this sideways right here lasted about 200 days. So going off of this, what would be the low pivot point, I guess to be fair, we got about here. We're looking at 150 days of up. We had two double tops though. So if we were to just consider some of this stuff, 238 days, We're 238 days. Look at that, dude. We're there. We're there. Well, let's do some sideways now. That's kind of the play. Build some structure in this 0.5 fib below the 618. It's not that it needs to do that. It's just healthier. It's a healthy market structure. There is no market structure right now. V-shaped recovery. It's not structure. This is FOMO. FOMO for no reason, too. Look at the betting this year on the Super Bowl. You know how much we could do in this world if everyone that was betting on this Super Bowl decided to create their own business? Like if we just pooled our money together as a community, and instead of betting on this nonsense, we put it towards building a business. You know how much money we would generate off of that compared to hoping that whatever team we put the money on wins? I mean, no offense if you're a sports gambler or better, that's on you. Do what you want to do with your finances and with your energy, but I'm just pointing out a truth right now. I don't think we're really in the territory that we should be gambling our money. We're in a financial situation right now in this world where this is probably the most speculative time ever, and that means you need to be more conservative. Don't risk as much. And there's nothing wrong with taking risks if it's going towards you. When you're betting on the game, you're giving this to something else. And when you put money on a sports game, if you lose it all. There's no waiting. If you put money in XRP when it was at 70 cents and you've been waiting since, you still have your money in XRP. So, yeah, this is dangerous territory. When Donut Factory told me the amount of money that was betting on this, it was blowing my mind. I could clearly see that there's so much going on right now. This gambling behavior, this is very unsophisticated, and this is kind of bubble territory in many ways when you see that behavior. Let's move on. So final note, we just wanted to point out the rejection and kind of this resistance that we were seeing at the 618, the bottom of the golden pocket. It's what we're facing today. Let's go over to total 2. So this is Bitcoin excluded. You would have total market cap without Bitcoin. And look at the fib pull here, same swing high to the same swing low, and a rejection at the 0.5 fib on this initial jump. Well, here we're first facing the 0.5 fib we're facing it for the first time. And let me make sure these fibs are like as crispy clean as I could get them. It'd be like right there. Boom. All right. So yeah, we are clearly very close to facing the 0.5 fib for the first time, and we're right below it. So aligning very much with this same phase of the cycle. Just wanted to point that out real quick. And my thoughts are it would be ideal to have a little bit of a chill moment. I wouldn't want to put too much emphasis on this total 2 as with Bitcoin, because this is what's running this whole thing. I'm not here to say that we can get all the way down to the 382, but that would be a structural retest with this double top that we had. And this was right here at the break before we went into what would be called the selling climax of this overall accumulation cycle that we're forming right now. That level would be healthy, but that would be a huge drop to see Bitcoin go down that much. It essentially is aligning with, let me show you right here. It's aligning with about 27,000. I'm not entirely sure. Oh, no, sorry. Excuse me. That would be aligning, I guess, with around 31,000. So that, yeah, that actually checks out. That checks out to me. But I rather just consider Bitcoin right now because that's what you're going to invest in. You can't invest in total market cap, right? So let's go over to the Bitcoin chart. Talk about this really quickly, which is our RSI and what we're seeing with price action. So we're seeing our high RSI coming in almost at 90 in October. We're getting a lower high here in December, and so far still a lower high, about 74 as of today. And we know that if Bitcoin closes off where it's at right now, above 48K, that there's going to be a gap on the CME chart. So let me open up the CME chart simultaneously and get into that. So there will be a gap on the CME, and if we went down to the 55-minute chart, you're going to see there was a lower gap that is still open. It's sitting around 40K. So if Bitcoin made it back to the lows that we got on January 23rd, that would be filling that gap. But we're now up significantly from there. So if this was to open today, we would have to have about another additional 20% correction, just like we had after the ETFs launched. Keep that in mind. I'm not saying all these gaps have to fill, because we also know that there's a really deep gap sitting at around 20K. And ever since Bitcoin has bought back up to these levels on a bull trap that we were anticipating, all those 20K gap people aren't talking anymore. It's kind of interesting. I mean, I am not, again, giving all my prana to these gaps, but they do fill most of the time. And if we were to have some repeat of this like C19 energy, sure, we did that last cycle. We got within cycle lows. Could that happen again? Sure. Would that be devastating and wipe out the entire crypto market? Pretty much. It would put a lot of fear into this market. And you know what fear just puts money into the strong hands. So something to talk about is just this bearish divergence. It's pretty clear. Also, Bitcoin going on about 7 daily candles green. This is getting closer to like record territory. I believe there was maybe 1 or 2 times where it got 9 or 10 green daily closes, but this is perfectly going into the new moon. I mean, how obvious is that? Our last pullback was perfectly into the full moon, and our last current cycle high top was on a new moon. So we're respecting these lunar cycles very nicely past the 2 full moons of the eclipse. So what do I teach? The 2 full moons before eclipses, we tend to be kind of relaxed, not as epic. You know what I mean? And that's, let me be very clear with my words. The 2 full moons before eclipses, we tend to be not respecting the lunar cycles as cleanly. We chop, and we don't have that same effect of rising dramatically. Okay? So it's almost like the eclipse creates a destabilization or something, especially the lunar eclipses during lunar cycles. But when we're in a solar cycle, our solar eclipses are bullish. We're always closing continual solar eclipses higher than the last solar eclipse. But it doesn't mean that we don't build structure along the way. Right now, we're getting to a place where if you were to look at things from a weekly perspective, it's not looking so structural. It's looking very, very dramatic, right? Buy up into this ETF's launching, correction immediately after it, and then a buyback. All that means to me was liquidations. This is the market maker playing with retail. That's leverage trading. All right, let's get over to the weekly analysis, and we are looking very good from a bullish perspective. There's really not much to say here unless we were to magically get sucked down below 43K right now. This is definitely a continuation candle. It's undeniable. We do have these. We do have the top side Bollinger Band though coming in at around 50K. It would also be very interesting if we got to 50K, because that's around where the stock to flow is. And we tend to be around stock to flow by the time this turns purple. We saw this over here in the last cycle, and we saw this over here in the C19 crash even. We retested the stock to flow after getting above it. Well, right now is the first time that we're getting close to interacting with it in a long time. So just making a note. But yeah. From a technical perspective, this would be a very bullish weekly close. Let me turn off these Bollinger Bands. And it's a bi-weekly close. Jesus. Yeah. This would be the highest bi-weekly close since... Whoa. Wow. It would be like the highest weekly close since the all-time high. How the tables turn. Madness. Yeah, it would literally be like the highest weekly close we've had since the month of the all-time high. Unbelievable. Alrighty, so that's looking, I'm sure all of our moving averages are looking great then. Yep. 21 EMA is sitting at 40K. That would be the bottom of that gap fill on the CME. Got the 55 crossing above the 200s, very bullish. And this 55-200 sitting at 31K is nice, because if there was to be a drawdown, that would be the pad the pad that the rock climber falls on. All right, so we have this wolf cross to the upside. All of our EMAs are now in bullish posture. This snaky vibe though, where it crosses all to the downside and crosses back up, is very elusive and it's not to be trusted. So I do see these 200s here catching up pretty quickly, and where this bottom one is catching up is right at our breakout point. So we broke out straight to that level, pretty much in a straight line, after we broke these resistances from this double top. You can see that right there. And since we've just chopped up and been kind of ranging since December. Does look like we're breaking out of the range today though, because we had a daily close high come in effectively on the 9th of February, and that's one of the reasons why I made my last YouTube video say that Bitcoin's never done this before, because it hasn't in when we were looking at the micro analysis. But one thing that Bitcoin still hasn't done yet is it hasn't closed the daily above the golden pocket. So let's talk about that really quickly. We have Bitcoin fib pull from this swing high to the swing low, and we have the 786, the top of the golden pocket, at 50,200. When we first enter the golden pocket, we usually don't break out above it and start trading back to all-time highs on the first go. We usually hit it, we get a rejection, build some structure for about 200 days, and then we pop above it later. So we would be way ahead of schedule if we were to do that now, and so far we have not hit that confirmation. So this, again, it's just feeling like a bull trap. It really does. It really does feel like a liquidity grab. Getting people to FOMO in. All around the Super Bowl, people are already very speculative, betting on the Super Bowl. You know, it's just dumb money moves. All right, let's get over to, so we've already talked about Bitcoin in regards to deeper pullback targets, but if we were to entertain something to be coming into late February around the full moon, it would be sensible to at least get back to 42K. That would be the median line of your structural horizontal range. Now the lows would be somewhere around 39, and because we have that CME gap to the downside, that makes a lot of sense. That would be another retest of the 618, and by the way, over the next 200 days, even if we were to get a black swan event, it would be likely that we get sucked right back into this golden pocket range. That's kind of where Bitcoin chills out for the next 200 days or so, the next 6 to 8 months. So just keep that in mind. Obviously, that would be a gift if that was to happen. And one thing to mention is this lower trend line I have, which comes in at the last bearish days of 2022. And a couple of touch points here. I think we had about a month. Yeah, a little over a month of touch points right at the pivot of the solar eclipse. So that would be really in alignment with at least seeing one more deeper correction. And then let me show you the bearish fib pull. So we have from the swing high to the swing low, and that 1618 sits at around 332, so 33,000. A lot of things lining up around that 0.5 fib, right around 32, 33K. So if there's going to be a swipe to the downside that's much more dramatic, that's still the area of interest. I'm not going to change my mind on that unless we start seeing daily candles close above 50,000. And that'd be very rare. The only time we saw a swiping above the top of the golden pocket in the first time visiting the golden pocket was back here in 2019, and it was just wicks to the upside. We did have this weird retest of highs before we just had multiple red candles and effectively a downtrend that lasted about 100 days. And it still kept going, actually, even deeper. I reviewed that in my last YouTube video too. Let's go over to Ethereum. Ethereum, right back at the macro 618. So we have our fib pull from this swing high to the swing low over here. We got bought up into this golden pocket. Our high still in on January 13th. Big correction that we've had, and this looks like this could be turning out into a head and shoulders. I'm not going to call it that right now. It's unimportant to me, but the way that we've been buying back up into this is just because of what Bitcoin's doing, and the rejection of the 618 is very normal. Because once you can't get into the golden pocket and hold it, you would gravitate back up to it to really confirm a resistance. So this aligns perfectly with this month's new moon. And consider this trend line in the short term somewhere where we would first test, and that's in the median line of this horizontal trading range, somewhere around 2,200. 2,200. by the full moon. Break below, we'd be looking at the 0.5 fib, and still anything below that 0.5 fib, if we're going to have a more dramatic correction on Bitcoin, would be taking you down to this 382 area. So about a 38% correction. Let's get over to... Oh, and by the way, if we were to start closing dailies above 2,616, that doesn't mean that I'm going to flip totally bullish just yet, because double tops are a thing. That could be what Bitcoin's doing right now, by the way, just a double top month to month. All right, XRP. Not a whole lot of updates here because we haven't really been doing anything. And there's no new updates on something that's still doing the same thing. Got about 10% gain off of the last 10 or so trading days, coming up into this major trend line that we're getting rejected off of today in the new moon. Not looking so good. And this trend line we've been talking about week after week after week, so we don't need to explain it again. But we are holding this horizontal range around this 48.49 cent level. And yeah, I talked about this in the last red pill, how weird it is that we have the 49ers are in the Super Bowl and we even had XRP trading to 49 cents. It's all about these 49s right now, and XRP is aligned with that. Why? Because this is the year of the X, and the XRP logo, it's all synced. It's all synchronized. All right. Yeah, we still have this month of March and April with this grand trial. So there's going to be two big dates during those timeframes, and those are going to be pivot points, I assume. And we'd be looking to a horizontal trading range right here. So if you'd like, if you're an XRP investor, you'd pull your fib from the high over here in July and down to this swing low that we got that followed. And you could see where we're at right now. We're kind of traveling around this 236 area. Let me make this. This is even better, actually. We've broken below it if we were to look at it from a linear perspective, not with the log setting turned on. This is a shorter time frame, so it's probably better to do that. Let me see if it's like 200 days. Yeah, exactly. So we're at 200 days now. We could consider flipping it to log. Either or, play around with both, but the most important part of this is it's just a mini Wyckoff phase. We have buying climax, selling climax, automatic rally, and right now we're in this spring effect. You know, like LPS effect, last point of support, last tests of supply. And that's really seeming to be the case because this was a common rejection level for XRP back before XRP was no longer deemed a security. Almost a full year. And now we're back testing it. So that's solid. Still holding higher low structure too. So can't really flip uber bearish on XRP until we start closing dailies and start breaking structure. So that would be like closing dailies below this 42 cent level. We still have some room to go. We're 10 cents higher than that right now. And we don't really need Bitcoin in the short term to be crazy bullish for XRP to just have an isolated event, something that deals with this SEC case to go up in a straight line, just like it did back here. And it also was super bullish right here too. Again, it's riding on its own wave right now because of what's happening with this development in the case. Let's go over to Oasis Network. All right. So we effectively had our first SOS, if we want to consider it that, or like a macro automatic rally. So you have your buying climax, selling climax, automatic rally. Then you would have somewhat of a spring, some LPSs along the way, and your SOS. Or you'd consider this buying climax, selling climax. This is your automatic rally. This is your spring. That's how I would do it, okay? But I need for both the traditional Wyckoff people and yeah, anyways. So buying climax, selling climax, this would be like your AR technically, and then your spring, and then you pop out of the spring with your SOS, and then now you're kind of in this test zone. So we want to keep the 236 in mind because if Bitcoin's going to have a deeper correction, this thing will most likely get sucked down to the 236. And there's a couple of levels you want to consider here. I'm going to move this down a little bit. Whenever I last covered this, that's insanely accurate wherever the hell I put that line because we went to it. I don't remember that podcast, but okay. It's not a flex, by the way. It's just, yeah, like whatever TA we did back then was pretty interesting, I suppose. So we have this horizontal line that I just put in now. And the reason I'm doing that is because we have these pivot points. We have right here, the break of after this huge correction. Then after your effective selling climax, you gravitated back to it, almost like a double top M pattern, another low into your spring. And then you got gravitated right back up to it. And it seems to be in this SOS vibe, we've back tested it again. Like within a hair. It's good enough. Again, we're talking about altcoins here with super low market cap. So these things, you need to be flexible. Obviously, you never set your buy orders or anything to the exact level. You always be more conservative. Same thing with your TA. So right now, this would be like your SOS phase effectively before we start recovering back into a new cycle. Let me see. Or we're already recovering into a new cycle. So we have 94% drop, and off of that, yeah, full 300. So this would be a good time for it to build some market structure, because you can see right here, it just raged in a straight line for about 2 months straight. So holding this area for, yeah, till July, that would be solid. And if we are to drop lower, you'd want to look for maybe a bull flag forming. But with the way that these corrections could come in, if there is a correction coming in soon, they could be nasty. You know, they could look like this. Boom. Real, like we're talking about 50% correction of 50 days. It's not weird. We were to have that kick in February, late February, 50% correction, it's essentially getting you back to the 382, or sorry, to the 236. And that would be right there into the April full moon, the first full moon after the solar eclipse. It's done it many times in the past. This is kind of just the way altcoins move. Look at this straight line jump, 600%, but then it dropped about 60% after that. This is an altcoin at the end of the day. So this is looking actually pretty good though. Most charts I check out, I like this. It's building some horizontal structure. I'm not sure if I would put too much in this though. This is like a venture capital play. 2% or less in the portfolio, maybe 3% if you want to have fun. And I do like this 600-day, 500 to 600-day range that we could effectively be back testing to call a new support, but can't get in those confirmations just yet at this stage in the cycle. It's looking good though. The one thing that I'm weary about is this concept that it might go into a new bull run where it goes into price discovery. That's very, very hard to determine. What we would do with that is we look to around the 4236. It's madness. Yeah. So look at this cycle. I don't know if we have all the chart history on this. It's hard to tell because a lot of altcoins were just added to this game in the last cycle. They don't have multiple cycles. But from where we're trading at now, essentially to around this 4236 is about 2,000%. So that's in alignment with a lot of other things that I am personally looking to get involved in. But we're in altcoin land and shit could go crazy, you know, depending on the coin, depending on the symbolism. And I taught you guys the symbolism for what's going on with the Year of the Dragon. So you want to look out for that stuff. I think we got a little green here. I'm not sure. Let me quickly look at that. It's called a rose. Roses are red. Why is it going to XRP? Okay, weird. Oasis logo is blue circles. Right? Is this the same? Yes, it is. That does. I might need to look into this more because I have my own theory on like blue versus red versus blue being the blood within versus the blood out. Blood out is exposed to oxygen. It gets red. Blood in, blue in the veins. Royalty, royal blue. Just my own way of looking at things, but I'm wondering where Oasis, because the Rosicrucians, right? Red Cross. This red is big in the occult. Let me quickly just look at something. $0.03 November 20. Okay, so yeah, like I mean, this is the data that we have to work with here. It's fine. Yeah, it's really holding a horizontal structure. The one thing I don't like about these sorts of things, though, is there's no data before C19, and I love to have that C19 data so I could see how this thing managed through a black swan event. Thus far, we haven't really seen it when we have a chart like this with no data before it. And of course, there might be a longer term chart out there. It's hard to find the perfect charts every single week. But yeah, let's move on. We have hollow, hot. All right, the last time I did analysis on this, I pulled a bearish fib from this level right here to the current swing high. The setting is turned on down here, fibs levels based on log scale, and you could see that we have effectively traded into this 1618 many times. If I was to pull it down to this yellow line that I had drawn on the chart, we perfectly bottomed there. So this is about as low as I think we should get on this project. What is this? 99.9% loss. Yeah, the 97% losses. Good retest though, and I'm going to tell you why, because this thing retested. Let me show you with this right here. So this was the C19 crash area. We had everything in a automatic rally around this time here in the summer of 2019, and then we had the spring. Everything went through a spring. Then we have our SOS and a backup phase. This is very clean. All right. Once you broke through the backup phase, this thing went parabolic, straight line breakout. Everything did. But you see how it's touching down at the end of this cycle right at that level. That's very clean. That's a good thing to see. And if we take from this cluster of trading days around the C19 crash to today, we're up 500%, which is pretty solid. It's a lot better than a lot of OG coins. Like it's better than Litecoin, for instance. So yeah, but yeah, sitting through a 97%, yeah, that's big. Anyone who is buying in this top area, that's, yeah. Anyways, you get it. Let's pull a long-term fib. So now we're pulling the typical bull fib from the swing high to swing low. We're going to make sure that our fib levels turned on. Beautiful, bellissimo. We have around the 236. So this one's pivoting off of a selling climax effectively, and I think it's going to go into automatic rally soon. So that's somewhere into this territory right here. I like this peak, and this peak matters because when you broke below it, that's when you had a lot of trading. So that's a key point to consider, around 0.007 cents. So I'm going to draw a line up here, and this is where around you would anticipate your automatic rally going to before a little bit of a stall out, and that's right in alignment with the bottom of the golden pocket. So you can wick up there, but yeah, anyways. So we have another about 300% in the tank. Yeah. Okay. So now what we would want to know is where could this thing go on a short-term correction, and I'll teach you that really quickly. You're going to pull a fib. And on this one, you're going to double click and you are going to adjust this setting. If it ever pulls up, turn that off. Woo! All right. Yeah, that's a little too much catch up. What I just showed you is what you would typically do. It's a range. It would be from about right here to about right there. And I would want you to keep track of both numbers because they do both count. But we're working on such limited data, and with an altcoin that just flips bullish in, like goes up 200% in 2 months or whatever. It's not like a stock. That kind of volatility is wild. So crypto, you want to be more flexible with the TA, of course. This gives you a range between 0.001 and 0.003. Effectively, we'll call it 0.012. Boom. Do we have any data on our fibs? All right, wolf cross to the downside. This wouldn't shock me if it got gravitated to the 55, but needless to say, I do suspect it would probably break the 200s if it was to get rejected onto the downside. Kind of like here. You see this phase? It's the same, I think. Almost the same phase that we're going through right now would be this. We had about a 60% correction. Let's see where that would put us. Yep. Right there. 50 to 60%. It's right there about that 0.011, 0.012 area I just told you about. So yeah, another thing we could do to actually simplify what I'm teaching you right now is you could pull another horizontal line to get an idea of what your supports were, and it's right here. So that would be a bullish pullback if it could just come down to here and hold this level. We have a lot of tests, another test, a test, then resistance. Clear trend line, getting above it, back test, and popped up. So I think that if this could maintain its structure, it should come back to around 0014. That'd be a nice actual buying opportunity, because from there up to the AR territory is looking about 400%, and back to all-time highs is 2,000%. So not a bad play, but still not the most bullish energy lately, while Bitcoin has been much, much more bullish and recovered. I mean, Bitcoin's effectively up more than this thing right now off of the all-time lows. So yeah, not the best horse to bet on, but got about a 7,000% move in under a half a year in the last bull run. So it was impressive if you got in at the right time. And I think if we were to get any pullbacks on this, it's kind of like the same sort of chance, same opportunity. At least a retest of the all-time high would be a 2,000% gain. So that's nice to see. Let's go over to Monero. Woo! What the fuck? Oh, it crashed. What the hell? 36% correction? All right. Yeah, and this big buyback the next day, Twin Towers, and correction since. That's not good. That's a spring. Welcome to the spring. Welcome to another spring in the Matrix. Beautiful. Buy this thing now. No, I'm just kidding. Don't buy it. But that's like what you want to buy. You want to buy the fucking spring, bro. It's funny. I had somebody comment one time saying that you say similar things for the projects. It's like, well, because they all look the same. This doesn't look the same. That is a death spiral out of nowhere. What the hell? But yeah, like most charts do look the same. I share very unique analysis when they don't. But anywho, super long-term trading range we have here. Wow, that's why I guess there was a delisting or some shit, or a hack of the network or whatever. It's a privacy token. I think a lot of people put prana towards privacy tokens, especially in the truther community. I don't really have any take on that, as if it's anything to... Yeah. My basic response to privacy is that if it's on the internet, if it's on the World Wide Web, it is not private. Somebody, somewhere, somehow can access it. And I know that that's discouraging to a lot of people. I'm not trying to tell you to not invest in privacy coins, whatever ones you're interested in, Darrow or Zcash, or what's the other one? Pirate Chain. Have fun. You do you with your investment thesis. But I think this idea that we have privacy on the internet is, yeah, that's a psyop. So such thing as privacy on the internet. Okay, so clearly some isolated event happened recently, because everything has been bullish as ever and pumping, and this thing has had a big correction, about almost 30% or so. Yeah, full 40% correction if you counted the tail. And today it's not looking much better. Because if it was to close this 5-day candle on another red, then that's continuation of the downside. So there's weakness in this project, and it's getting about back to the lows of our cycle. So this would be your cycle high. This would be your lows. And wow, there's magic to this parallel channel that I drew. I forgot when I drew this. But you see this parallel channel? Like, wow, my God. Because it was perfectly back testing it. That's bullish as hell. That's why I initially responded saying, buy. You're below the 236. You're back testing a huge parallel channel that's been in place since the end of the bull run for 1,000 fucking days. Double bottom vibes. The only thing that could happen is a deeper spring, like a trade into this lower area. But this is usually like a gift to get these kind of opportunities on an investment. And given that this is in a very long-term horizontal range, the next move would be and a bullish breakout, right? You'd have your buying climax in the macro. Yeah, it's hard to sell, but you get a buying climax, selling climax, AR. It's hard to call that an AR because we went higher. It's just a bull trap. Yeah, we're running out of time in today's episode, but this is wild to see this random correction pop up. But structurally, it's great. It's an opportunity. I don't get bearish. Like, you hear my response to this, 0% bearish. This, on the other hand, we got a ton of examples. A ton of examples of like Casper. Not looking good. We went over this so many times now. Not the best chart. This is doing all of this mess. Popping up. Going straight back. Betting on hope because there's no prior cycles. And consistently down since launch. Never had a bullish day ever. So yeah. And what technology are you betting on? I mean, not to troll or talk shit. It's just, yeah. This, you have some chart history. You have long-term data. And Monero killed it at one point. Look at that. It's almost 200,000% gains. So now it needed a cool-off cycle. And that's what it had. And from its selling climax up to all-time high, current all-time high, it was still a 10x. Now it's building structure, and it's coming back and trading in a range that it was getting rejected off in the past bull run. So, yeah, these are rare gifts to come back below the 236 and to get a chance near the lows. And I'll wrap up that analysis with that. And then you still have your automatic rally kind of macro vibe, or like what would be an effective SOS, and that'd be bringing you up to about $200. So that's a 150% gain-ish. So we'll get Tezos. Another great example of a lackluster performance amongst many other, like, a lot of people think that XRP is not doing well right now. It's like, it's not really that true. It's like a lot of coins are actually having these very lackluster bear markets. But anyways, let's get over to here. Oh shit. Oh my God. Yeah, I wouldn't touch this thing. This thing is lower than the C19 crash. Holy shit. I haven't seen many examples of this. This thing is trading at the absolute lows of the C19 crash today. And it's gone even lower. What? This thing has gone almost 40% lower than the C19 crash. Wow. There's not many examples of something that you could have bought during the C19 crash where you're not up in profits. Like, very little. I mean, imagine buying Bitcoin during the C19 crash. At the lows, at the absolute lows, you'd be up today 1,000% on Bitcoin. On this, you'd be down. Wow, that's mind-blowing. I don't really see too many charts that have that example. Okay, yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say. That's not a good bet at all, man. It looks like it has this like Saturn logo too, which is interesting. Yeah, it does have a little bit of that vibe. This 3T. We should tell 3T Warrior Academy, yo, that's your logo, bro. 3T. Anyways, I think 3T Warrior Academy is doing better than the Tezos Foundation right now. This is horrifying. This is really rough. Yeah, okay, I'm trying to find words for this, but I don't find many examples where we're lower. Going back as low as like the selling climax of 2019, there's a lot of examples of that. This is one of them, but to see that type. So you know what though, for real, this shit was doing super good then leading into the C19 and the recovery of C19 structurally. But ever since the end of the Shemitah, this thing has been horrifying. This is too choppy though for me to feel confident in. Like, you can see structurally there really is no structure. Yeah. If you bought this thing on the day that it was listed, here we are, and you're still down 40%. That's not good. There's no long-term investment quality to this. You understand? This is purely a trader's coin, and yeah. It's been a short for most of its life cycle. Okay, yeah. I mean, if it could break above the 382, then I would flip. But for now, lower highs, continuous lower lows, no change in structure. It's trading lower than it was in the C19 crash. Bearish, bearish, bearish. Nothing positive to say about this. Let's move on. Bitcoin Cash up a little bit today. Okay, interesting structure. So we covered this probably around the same time as we last covered Monero, maybe. More of an OG project, I suppose. We have the all-time high, and then we have the AR high, a lower high, multiple lower highs on this trend line, and then we've recently broken above. But this is another example of an OG project that has just not made much progress. And I'm missing the whole 2020 year. What the hell happened? Got to wrap up today's podcast. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's still, the data's still kind of there. Oh my God, yeah. So this gives us some of the 2020 data. You can see C19 crash. We're trading right around that cluster, the same. It's like we made no progress, and here we are 1,400 days later. It's not good. Okay, so when we zoom in, sure, it had a little bit of a pop, but now we're in another trading range that's been pretty much horizontal for the last 230 days. So really choppy, really not a lot of progress. Having 50% corrections on one of its first bullish moments pretty much since, 2020. I do like structure though. That's one thing positive to say, is there is at least structure. I wish Bitcoin would sort of do this right now, like chill out, build some structure. Because just going up in a straight line isn't sustainable. It's not a sign of, okay. But okay, let's get to the final note here though. We are breaking out, back testing a major resistance. But we can't really confirm a trend reversal until we start breaking above this automatic rally, which we're effectively down from 80%, and we're down from the all-time high 93% since 2018. If you invested in Bitcoin at the all-time high of 2018, you would be up 100% plus right now, and this you'd be down 93%. Did you hear what I just said? Bitcoin, you would be up 150% right now, and Bitcoin Cash, you would be down 93%. This is not this is a distraction. Be careful with stuff like this. I think there might be this idea or rumor that there's more ROI here, and that's fine, but that's really a gamble because you have no data to back that with. As I just showed you a moment ago, this is 93% down since the all-time high of 2017, with no new all-time high in 2021, while every other altcoin was pretty much doing that. Let's see. I think it might just be as good as XRP in confirming all-time, or the cycle low of C19 to the top. I just want to check for fun. Yeah. It's about similar, but my God, it's down from the 2017 all-time highs a lot. Yeah, it's actually a comparable situation. Yeah. All right, I'm going to wrap today's podcast up. There is this sort of bullish backtest, I suppose, that you have on this outside trend line, but if we were to get any rejections right now in the Bitcoin chart, we're seeing this thing most likely come back to the 236. I suppose there's a buying opportunity, there. And the fact that if it was to go to all-time highs, it's only a 2,000% gain, considering there's so many other plays out there that could do that with a lot more prana going towards them, it's better to probably consider that as a bet. Stuff that did well in 2021 and didn't get rejected 60% down from the prior all-time high, while this time around we're still down 80% from those highs. There's just really nothing to say here that's positive. So anyways, Red Pill podcast gets spicy sometimes. That's why you show up here. I appreciate every single one of you. I will be sharing an update midweek if needed, but for now, this analysis is where it's at. We do have that 50K level for Bitcoin, the top of the golden pocket. We have not broken above that on a daily close during this phase of the bull run. So if we were to do that, that would be the first time ever, and that would definitely require some attention. But until then, just ranging. We have this Super Bowl today. We're going to see how that all goes down. And as I shared with you earlier, I have this pre-sale launch going on all throughout tomorrow. It's getting you in at the lowest price available for the Patreon supporters over here in the Mastermind community. And the link to that and all the information will be in the description box below. I appreciate you guys. Hope you have an amazing rest of your weekend. Much love.